Furnace below. Prologue. The soil remembers. Log entry. Thraxis core drilling site. Omega 17. Date. 98-11.7. Minor ID. R. urine classification. Red zone emergency broadcast. Status final. They told us the heat was normal. Part of the crust's natural behavior, they said. Lava flickers. Cracks groan. You get used to it. But this wasn't lava. And this heat? It breathed. I was 6 miles down when the drills screamed and stopped mid-spin, like they hit something. Alive. We thought it was ore at first, maybe a vein of charged hematite, but it pulsed, it pushed back, and then it opened its eyes. We didn't see a creature, no. We saw a wall of flame that watched us. The others ran. Jarrow's suit melted. I still hear him inside it, coughing up blood and fire. The scream didn't echo. It just vanished into the walls like they absorbed it. I crawled back to the surface shaft. Only one elevator. Still worked. Every second that heat chased me up. Not like it wanted to kill me, like it remembered me. Before I closed the hatch behind me, I looked down one last time. The tunnels had changed. Smooth, curved, carved into perfect, symmetrical shapes. Geometric patterns, too exact for any drill, too ancient for any map. And in the center of it all, a spire of flame. Reaching up, not rising randomly, not chaotic, climbing. If anyone hears this, don't come back. Let it burn. Let it stay buried. Because what we woke up down there, it's not sleeping anymore, signal lost. Thraxis mining colony classified. Silent planet. Furnace below, Chapter 1, Ashblood returns. The dropship's hull screamed against the wind as it pierced the atmosphere of Thraxis, a high-pitched metallic shriek that sounded more like a warning than turbulence. Inside the troop bay, Lieutenant Riven Kael sat in silence, helmet in her lap, boots locked into the magnetic rig below. Her eyes, hard and rimmed with fatigue, stared through the deck plating like she could see the red crust waiting for them. The others didn't speak much. No jokes, no pre-drop chatter. Just the low hum of furnace suits' booting systems, and the occasional hiss of respirators purging heat from the recycled air. This wasn't a standard op. This was a descent into a planet that ate people. Furnace suit core temperature, stable, at 38.4 degrees, said Rig. The squad's integrated combat AI. Atmospheric entry complete. External conditions. Hostile. Soil temp, 124 digs. No breathable air. Radiation negligible. Visibility degraded by ash fog. Welcome to hell. Shut it, Rig, Kael muttered. She sealed her helmet. Her HUD flickered to life. Tactical overlays. Motion sensors, thermal radar, and her squad vitals blinking in real time. All green. For now. Across from her sat Sergeant Eno Var, absently twisting a piece of metal in his fingers. He'd crafted it into a little hook. He was always doing that. Tinkering, scrapping. You ever think, he said, that maybe we just leave this rock alone and pretend we never got the transmission? Kael didn't answer. Eno chuckled dryly. Right, that's what I thought. The last time she was on Thraxis, there were screams in the air and blood in her lungs. A full unit lost underground. Meltdown protocol initiated. Her body recovered just before the reactor went critical. She still had heat scars under her skin. The medics called it nerve damage. She called it a reminder. Her suit's inner systems clicked. Cooling coils engaged. Command objective. Investigate. Anomaly. Retrieve data, locate source, neutralize hostile threat. Sub-objective. Do not let anything reach orbit. The dropship's rear ramp hissed open. Heat slammed into them like a tidal wave. The ash fog turned the world gray-red, thick enough to choke a flame. In the distance, the ruins of Site Omega 17 loomed, twisted scaffoldings and shattered lift towers half swallowed by cracked earth. Something down there had cracked the crust. And now it was climbing up. Kael dropped first. Her boots hit soil that hissed beneath her weight. Not dirt, bone-hot glass sand, half melted and still twitching with seismic tremors. One by one, her squad followed. Eno, Thorn, silent and massive. Dr. Vale, the mission scientist looking far too clean for a death planet. And Rig, embedded in their comms, ever chirping in their ears like an invisible devil. Kael raised her rifle, its barrel already warming from the air alone. Formation 3, eyes up, scanners wide, she ordered. We move now, into the shaft. Back to the furnace, Eno muttered. Not back, Kael said. Through. Below the cracked towers and shattered rails, a blackened mining shaft opened like a wound in the earth, steaming, groaning, and alive. And from deep within, something watched them descend. Furnace below. Chapter 2. The shaft. The shaft swallowed them. Old rails and dangling cables framed the descent like skeletal ribs. The elevator was long gone, just a twisted frame hanging by a thread halfway down. Squad Breachborn rappelled. Down the maintenance ladders, boots clanking on rusted rungs one level at a time. Kael led. Every 10 meters, Rig pinged them with an environmental check. The temperature climbed slowly. So did the radiation. Nothing lethal yet, but the sound down here was wrong. Not just the grind of metal under heat stress. Not just the creak of shifting stone. Breathing. Low. Deep. Rhythmic. Like the planet had lungs. Lights out. Eno muttered, flipping his visor to thermal. This place is darker than a black site on payday. Better that way. Thorn's voice rumbled through the comms. They see by light. Kael paused on the next. Landing. They. Thorn didn't answer. Dr. Vale adjusted the sensor pack on her suit. We're nearing the last recorded signal from Site Omega-17. Should be an access point to a lower drift nearby. Kael swept the space with her rifle. Then we move. Fast. They stepped into the main operations chamber, what used to be a mining command hub. It was half melted, like the walls had liquefied and reformed in unnatural curves. Breach detected. Rig chimed in. This architecture matches nothing in Thraxis engineering protocols. Structural anomalies, 77%. Possible external influence, confirmed. Kael's suit pinged. Motion, low and distant, below them. Something was moving in the subshaft. Bang, Eno spun, gun raised. What the hell was that? Kael dropped to one knee, sweeping thermal. Nothing. I saw something, he said. Big, fast, just at the edge of range. Rig? Kael asked. Analyzing. Echoes are inconsistent. Something down there is. Distorting sound. Like it doesn't want to be heard, Vale said softly. Kael's eyes locked with hers. How do you know that? Vale hesitated. I read the old reports. From the silent zones. The way the miners described it, right? Before they lost contact, like sound was eaten. Kael raised her rifle. We move. Thorn, take point. Eno, cover the rear. Copy, they both replied. The tunnel ahead bent downward, leading deeper into the undercrust. They walked through walls that had melted, into curves like heat had sculpted intention into stone. Vale whispered over comms. You ever wonder if this place didn't just burn, but grew this way? Motion ping, rig. 20 meters, stationary, unknown origin. They rounded a bend and stopped. In the center of the tunnel lay a corpse, wearing a furnace suit. ID tag matches. Minor First Class D Tellin, Rig confirmed. Declared KIA 18 months ago. But the body was fresh. No signs of decay. The suit was boiled shut from the inside. Kael crouched beside it, running her fingers over the armor plating. Veins of black-red crystal spiderwebbed through the metal, grown into it, like infection. Dr. Vale? She asked. Vale scanned it. Her face went pale. This isn't crystallization, it's biological, like a nerve system made of stone. Thorn tilted his head. It's feeding off the suit. No, Vale corrected. It's learning from it. Kael stood. We keep moving. Are we not going to burn that thing? Eno asked. Because I'd very much like to burn that thing. Negative, Kael said. We need to know how far it's spread. As they pressed on, The corpse twitched once, softly, like a muscle responding to a whisper in its sleep. None of them saw it. Motion ping. Rig. Multiple signals closing fast. Kael turned. Weapons up. The ash shifted behind them. Something in the dark exhaled. Click, 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 click. And all hell broke loose. Furnace below. Chapter 3. First contact fire. The tunnel exploded in motion. From the ash, shapes emerged. Fluid, angular, glowing dimly from within. Not quite metal. Not quite flesh. They moved on too many limbs like centipedes shaped by fire, crawling up from the stone fused with it, breaking free like maggots from a corpse. And the clicking, that damn clicking. Contact. Kael barked. Muzzle flashes lit the dark like lightning. Thorn opened fire first. His rotary cannon spun with a deafening roar, shredding the first creature that lunged. But when it hit the ground, it didn't stay dead. The pieces crawled toward each other. Eno launched a thermal charge. The explosion bloomed red, molten and brief. One of the things screamed, not from pain, but from surprise. Rig. Entities are reactive. Damage observed, but recovery rate is abnormal. They're learning. Fast. Kael dropped 2. Precision. Shots to the head. Their bodies twisted into themselves like flame folding into origami. "Fall back to the vertical shaft," she shouted. Thorn stayed behind, covering them as they moved. His armor glowed from the heat, plates blistering. The light caught one creature just right and revealed what was inside. Bones, human, melted into the core of the thing. "Shit," Eno whispered. "They're made from us." The team reached the lift skeleton, climbing fast. Eno turned and fired one last shot. His bullet caught a creature mid-leap, tearing off its limbs, but it grinned as it fell. "They're not attacking to kill," Vale said, climbing just behind Kael. Kael looked down at her. "Then why?" "They're testing us." They sealed the upper bulkhead just as the swarm hit the door, metal echoing, like hail in a storm. Eno slammed the lock, breathing hard. Thorn leaned against the wall, silent. Smoke curled from his armor. Kael turned on Vale. "What aren't you telling us?" Vale didn't look away. "The Breachborn weren't just discovered. They were studied. My family was part of the initial team. Decades ago. They covered it up, said the project failed, but it didn't. They learned how to speak with them." Kael's eyes narrowed. "So this wasn't a recon mission. It was containment." Vale nodded once. "Or extermination." Rig chimed in. "External temporizing, seismic pressure building, shaft stability compromised, we need to move." Kael holstered her rifle. "We head deeper, no turning back now." Eno cursed under his breath. "You realize we just survived a goddamn ambush by fire monsters made out of dead people and scrap, and your plan is to go deeper?" Kael looked at him, calm and sharp. "They're building something, and we're not gonna stop it from the surface." They descended again, deeper into the furnace. Behind them, the metal door bent inward, and far below, something laughed. Not with a voice. Not with sound, but through heat itself. Furnace below, Chapter 4. The memory vein. The new shaft wasn't carved by drills. The walls were smooth, patterned in repeating symbols, pulsing faintly beneath layers of volcanic glass. They looked like veins, not of ore, but of memory. Every step deeper down, Kael felt lighter, not physically, mentally, like something was peeling thoughts out of her skull and laying them bare. "Status check," Kael said over comms. No answer. "Squad, report." Only static and one sound. Click, click, click. But not from outside her helmet, from inside. She ripped her helmet off. Silence. The air down here should have been toxic, but she could breathe it. She blinked hard, trying to refocus. A sudden rush of scent overwhelmed her. Burnt fuel, gunpowder, charred skin. Then she saw them, her old squad. The ones that didn't make it, standing at the edge of the tunnel, watching her, mouths open. No sound. Kael. A voice. Real. Behind. Vale pale, out of breath. "Don't take your helmet off," she said, stepping close. Kael snapped back to focus. She'd dropped the helmet entirely. When she looked again, her old squad was gone. Only darkness. I heard them. Kael whispered. You weren't supposed to. They were standing on a new level now. Less tunnel, more cathedral. Columns of obsidian spiraled upward into nothing. The walls shimmered faintly with heat mirage, but what reflected back in them wasn't real. In one, Kael saw herself, but her eyes burned with orange light. In another, Thorn's reflection was gone. Rig activated. We have reached Central, conduit of the core breach. Signs of constructed intelligence confirmed. Structure is aware. They walked together into the memory vein, a long, cracked hallway lined with what looked like sarcophagi, fused with the walls. Each had a face. Human, some half-melted, some watching. What is this place? Ano muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Vale stopped walking. It's a library, she said. Of minds. It remembers everything that dies in this place. Kael stared at one of the glass coffins. Inside was herself, still breathing. Her stomach dropped. That's not possible, she said. It's not a body, Vale whispered. It's your imprint. It made one for you, because it's listening to you now. Suddenly Rig's voice glitched. I remember. You carried fire. You left me. Incomplete. Kael froze. What the hell was that? Ano aimed his weapon. At the walls. Rig's not supposed to glitch like that, right? Thorn finally spoke. It's not Rig anymore. Boom. The wall to their left erupted. A molten breach cracked through the black stone. One of the Breachborn crawled out, twisting, tall, its limbs made of steel fused with spinal columns, its face wearing a molten helmet of Kael's old commander. It whispered, not with sound, but through the heat itself. Ash blood returns, the key is awake. Kael's HUD flared red, her suit core surged. Whatever was inside this place, it wanted her, and now it had found her again. Furnace Below, Chapter 5, The Unraveling. The creature that stepped from the breach was huge, far larger than anything Kael had fought before. Its steel and bone form crawled with the same unnatural grace as the things they'd fought earlier. But this one felt different, like it belonged in the earth, like it had always been there. It wasn't just a creature. It was a manifestation of something older. The molten helmet was too familiar. Kael recognized the face behind it. Commander Rourke, the leader of her previous unit. His features burned into her mind. Rourke's body had been consumed by flame years ago, swallowed by the core collapse. No way was he still here standing in front of her alive. Kael, Rourke's voice came, distorted by the crackling heat. The words seemed to vibrate through her bones, like an echo of a memory long lost. The breach calls to you. No, Guriel whispered, stepping backward. You're dead, Rourke. You died with the rest of the unit. We never found your body. I am not dead. The creature tilted its head, the molten helmet flickering. Rourke's eyes, his real eyes, were visible through the cracks in the smoldering metal. I was reborn in this place, Kael, as you will be, when the fire finds you. The walls trembled as the Breachborn's voice echoed through the chamber. The air grew heavier. It wasn't just the heat. It felt like something sinking into their skin, tugging at their thoughts. I don't want your rebirth, Kael spat, raising her rifle. You will not escape it. Rourke's form shifted, the fire within him flickering as his limbs elongated, reshaping, stretching. The Breachborn's body pulled at the walls, as if the very structure of the cave was feeding into it. The key is already awake, Rig glitched again. Do you remember the first time we met, Kael? I remember. Your hands were covered in fire. Rig. Kael's voice was hoarse. She looked at her wrist, but the AI's voice was faint. What's happening to you? The voice didn't answer. Instead, the sarcophagi lining the chamber seemed to pulse, their surfaces shifting as if they were alive. The faces inside weren't human anymore, though. They were something else, something more alien. The way they looked at her, it wasn't with eyes. It was with awareness, expectation. Kael's pulse quickened. She realized too late. They weren't just watching her. They were waiting for something. Fire. Rourke's voice was almost a chant now. The fire remembers you, Kael. It burns inside of you. Before she could react, something lunged from the shadows, a smaller Breachborn, its form more liquid than solid, like a shadow made of flame. It skittered toward her, tendrils of molten metal dripping from its form. The heat from its body was enough to make her skin burn through the furnace suit. "Cover fire!" Thorn roared, his massive frame stepping forward. His gun thundered, spraying molten lead into the Breachborn, but it didn't flinch. It simply absorbed the fire, growing larger with each bullet that struck it. Kael slammed her rifle into the thing's faceplate, trying to tear it apart, but it moved too fast. Wrapped around her, hot metal seeping into her suit, slithering into the seams. The air around her bent, the heat distorting the reality of what she saw. "You can't kill what's already dead, Kael," the creature hissed in Rourke's voice, and Kael felt the ground beneath her feet shift. Her breath quickened. The walls pressed in. She had to break free. "Get off me," Kael screamed. Eno fired a precision shot at the Breachborn's tendrils, severing the limb that held her. The thing recoiled, hissing like a furnace shutting down, but it was only a momentary retreat. "We're not killing them." Kael gritted her teeth, pushing herself upright, her eyes burning with fury. "We're stopping them. We need to get out," Vale shouted. "This place is alive. It's pulling us in." Kael nodded sharply. "No, we go deeper." "What?" Eno's face was a mixture of disbelief and panic. "We just fought one of them. They're everywhere down here, Kael." "I'm not leaving until we destroy the breach." Kael's voice was steel, cutting through the fear. "And we're not running from something that's been waiting centuries." Thorn's voice came through, quiet but unwavering. "The fire's already inside of us." Kael glanced at him. She'd seen the cracks in Thorn before, the way his humanity had frayed under the pressure of these missions. But now, his eyes were different. They didn't look like Thorn's, they looked like the Breachborn. "Thorn?" Kael asked, her voice careful. He didn't answer, just stared at the walls, the flickering heat in his eyes burning brighter. He reached for his weapon. His hands trembled, but his movements weren't human anymore. Riggs' voice again, soft but invasive. "We've always been together, Kael. You just didn't remember. You were always meant to lead them. To lead me." Kael's skin felt cold despite the heat around them. She raised her rifle again, aiming directly at Thorn. "Thorn, stop." Furnace below, Chapter 6. Beneath the ash. The air in the chamber was thick, too thick, with the weight of something ancient pressing down on them. The walls around them hummed, as if the very earth was alive, breathing in sync with their movements. Kael's rifle remained aimed at Thorn. He didn't move, didn't even flinch. His eyes, the ones she'd known for years, were gone, replaced by something empty, something hollow and insatiable. His movements weren't human anymore. They were calculated, deliberate, like something was pulling the strings, guiding him. "Thorn." Her voice was softer now, a plea, as much to herself as to him. The Thorn she knew, the man who had been her closest ally, was slipping away piece by piece into something else. The Breachborn had gotten to him. You're not him anymore, are you?" Kael whispered. Thorn's lips curled into a faint, sickly smile. The fire in his eyes burned brighter like molten metal. "I am, and I am not." Suddenly, the walls of the chamber cracked. The ground beneath them began to tremble, rumbles echoing from deep within the core. The breach was waking up, and it wasn't just the Breachborn it was calling. It was calling everything. "Kael, we need to move," Vale shouted, voice rising in panic. "The whole system is about to collapse. The core's destabilizing. The ground buckled beneath them. Crack! The tunnel split wide open and the floor fell away into an abyss. Thorn lurched forward, his hand reaching out. But Kael was already moving, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him back before he could leap into the deepening void below. His fingers twitched, as though the call of the darkness below was too strong for him to resist. "We don't have time for this," Kael shouted, dragging him away from the edge. "Rig. Warning! Core breach critical. No return possible. Evacuation protocols advised. Temperature rising rapidly." "We are the fire," Thorn murmured, his voice low and cold, as though the words weren't his own. We are the Ash. Kael gritted her teeth and shoved him forward. You're still here, Thorn. Fight it. But as she turned her gaze back to the others, she saw it. Vel, her scientist, standing still, too still, eyes blank. She had her helmet off, staring at the flickering light of the core as if drawn to it. Vel, snap out of it, Kael commanded, stepping toward her. But Vel didn't move. The light of the core flickered in her eyes, drowning out everything around her. Suddenly, Vel spoke, her voice not her own. It came out in a strange, warped cadence, like a broken recording. You don't remember, do you, Kael? Kael froze. What the hell are you talking about, Vel? The woman's eyes were wide, unblinking. The Breachborn were never an accident. They were never a failure. My family created them. They were the first, the key to everything. Her lips twitched, as though the words weren't fully hers. They weren't trying to kill us, they were trying to bring us back. Vel's words hung in the air like a curse. We were always meant to transcend. She smiled, a twisted, unnatural thing. You, Kael, you're the one who holds the key to unlocking everything. Kael's hand tightened around her rifle. No. The word came out like a strangled gasp. I will never be part of this. The ground beneath them shuddered violently, and Kael knew they didn't have much time left. The core was collapsing, but the Breachborn weren't just creatures anymore. They were a force, a presence, something alive in the very rock they stood on. Suddenly, Thorn's voice, hushed and twisted, broke through Kael's thoughts. We were always part of it, Kael. Thorn's arms jerked forward, his rifle firing into the dark, but he wasn't aiming at any enemy. He was shooting at the walls, the ceiling, at the structure itself, like he was trying to break free from the reality around him. The Breachborn began to emerge from the cracks, dozens of them crawling through the fissures like insects, their forms twisting and undulating as they moved, more fluid than ever before, more organic, and from the center of the chamber, a thunderous roar erupted. The core, the heart of the planet, began to pulse, bright, painful light spilling from cracks in the walls. We need to shut it down, Kael, Vel screamed. Kael glanced at her squad. Thorn, barely recognizable. Vel, consumed by the Breachborn's influence. And Ano, still standing firm, though his gaze flickered with the same doubt and fear that had clouded them all. We have to get to the breach core, Kael said, her voice steady. Now. But as she turned toward the entrance, a shudder ran through the walls. Something greater than just the Breachborn was emerging from the depths of the planet. A presence, ancient and powerful, rising like a storm. Kael took one last look at the squad, her heart pounding. It was time to face it all. Furnace Below, Chapter 7. The heart of Ash Kael's boots hit the unstable floor with a resonating thud. The chamber was collapsing around them, the cracks in the walls widening as the pulse of the core, the heart of this hellish planet, intensified. It was no longer just the ground beneath their feet that trembled. It was the very fabric of reality. Eno sprinted ahead, his voice sharp. We have to move! Now! Kael nodded, but her eyes remained on Vel, still standing, staring into the breach in the wall, a lightless emptiness in her expression. Vel, what the hell are you doing? Kael shouted. The woman's lips twitched and her eyes flickered toward Kael, but it wasn't Vel looking at her. It was something else, something cold and unfeeling. The breach is mine, Vel whispered, voice trailing off as though in a trance. I've always known. I was meant to lead them. The fire, the ash, it's all connected. Kael's gut twisted. The Breachborn weren't a plague. They weren't the accident Vel had made them out to be. They were the chosen, part of a greater plan. Her plan. You're not yourself, Kael said, her voice taut with desperation. But the look in Vel's eyes only grew more distant, as if her mind had already left her body. Suddenly, the ground beneath them split wide open. A loud crack echoed through the chamber as the core's pulse reached its peak. The walls trembled again, more violently this time. The temperature skyrocketed, the very air heavy with the burning scent of metal. And Ash, Kael, we're too late, Eno shouted over the roar. The core's breaking apart. We won't survive long enough to reach the breach. Kael tightened her grip on her rifle. We have no choice, Eno. The Breachborn surged forward, pouring from the newly opened cracks, their bodies twisting and shifting, molten metal dripping like living fire. They screeched, a sound not of pain but of joy, an eerie, almost symphonic cry. Kael turned, her eyes narrowing. The squad was breaking down. Thorn was losing himself, and Vale was already slipping away. Only Eno remained stable, but even he was beginning to show signs of the planet's influence, his movements stiffening, his eyes twitching with the strain. "Thorn, don't!" Kael yelled. But the man didn't respond. His body jerked violently as he reached for the nearest Breachborn, his hand morphing, melting into something dark, organic. The Breachborn's influence was overtaking him. Thorn's voice, warped and cold, came through the chaos. "I am the flame. I am the ash." He grinned, though his smile was twisted and unnatural. "We're all part of it, Kael. We were never meant to escape." Kael's heart pounded. The Breachborn didn't just want to infect them. They were trying to merge with them, to become one. "No!" Kael shouted, charging forward to stop him. But as she reached for him, the floor buckled again, and Thorn, already halfway through the transformation, suddenly snapped toward her with unnatural speed, his hand shooting out to grab her by the throat. Kael's vision blurred as he squeezed, his strength unnatural, his breath hot and stench-filled like charred flesh. She fought against him, gasping for air as the world began to spin. This was it. This was the moment she would break. But as the world around her blurred, she saw it. Through the crack in the floor, beneath the shifting landscape, the breach. A massive, glowing, ever-expanding rift in the heart of the planet. It was not a wound, not a scar. It was alive, conscious. It was a gateway, a membrane stretching into something ancient and vast, beyond time. The Breachborn weren't just here to destroy. They were trying to open it, and Kael was the key. Kael reached out, her fingers trembling, not knowing if she could hold on for long enough. She thought of everything, the squad, the failures, the lies, the betrayals. But one thing remained clear. She was not going to let this world swallow her whole. With a shuddering breath, she slammed her boot into Thorn's chest, sending him stumbling backward into the swarming Breachborn. They clung to him like shadows, melting into his form, devouring him whole. But Kael didn't look back. "Eno!" she screamed. Eno was already moving toward the core, his suit flickering with overload warnings. The light was blinding now. The walls were alive, breathing. This thing, this force wasn't just a relic. It was alive, and it wanted Kael. She had no choice now. The planet's heart was not a weapon. It was a life form, an organism that fed on the memories of those who fell into its depths, and it was starving. The tunnel that led to the core breach was narrow, barely wide enough for them to squeeze through. Kael's fingers scraped against the burning walls as she ran, heart racing. The pulse of the core grew louder, a thundering drumbeat. Eno was ahead of her, his face pale and set with determination, but she could see it. The change in him. The same eyes that had once been so steady were now distant, vacant, like his soul was already slipping away. "Kael, we don't have time," Eno shouted, already at the entrance to the heart of the breach. The light from within was blinding, as if the core itself was alive, calling to them. "We can't escape it." Kael stepped into the heart of the breach, her mind racing. She wasn't sure how much time she had. The Breachborn, the core, the ash, it was all one, and she was the center of it. Furnace below. Chapter 8. The Final Ember. The air in the chamber was thick, charged with unnatural heat, as if the very space they stood in was being drawn into the pulse of the core. The walls around them shimmered like the surface of molten metal. Kael's heart pounded in her chest as she approached the epicenter. The breach, a living force, a wound on the planet's surface. It was alive, breathing, pulling them closer with each beat. Eno stood at the edge of the core, staring into the pulsating light as if it had a hold on him, its glow flickering against the whites of his eyes. "Eno!" Kael snapped, running toward him. "We have to move. This place is a death trap." Eno didn't respond. His fingers twitched almost mechanically, as if he was caught in some kind of trance. The core was not just consuming the planet, it was speaking to him. Kael could see it now. The way the light from the breach seemed to sink into his skin like it was marking him. She reached out, grabbing his arm. "Eno, snap out of it." His eyes shifted toward her, but they were distant, hollow. "Kael, I'm not sure I can, His voice faltered, and for a moment she saw the man she knew, the one who had always been there, steady and strong. But that moment was gone in the blink of an eye. "I have to finish it." Eno's voice was low, distorted, his grip tightening around Kael's wrist. "It's in me, Kael. I know it. I've always known. I was meant for this." The ground trembled beneath them, and Kael's eyes darted to the sides. More Breachborn emerged from the darkened fissures in the walls. Their forms were now fully fluid, like shadows made of molten metal, their twisted faces watching them with cold hunger. "We don't have time for this, Eno," Kael yelled, pulling him away from the breach, but the planet itself seemed to protest. The walls shifted, the ceiling cracked, and with an explosive roar, a massive shockwave erupted from the core. The force knocked Kael off her feet, sending her sprawling across the ground. "We're too late." Kael heard Vale's voice, cold and alien, echoing through the chamber. "The breach is awakening, Kael. It's already too late." Kael pushed herself upright, heart racing. The light from the breach intensified, now a blinding white that filled every corner of the room. "I have to stop it," Kael said under her breath, her voice barely audible over the rising cacophony. Eno stood there, a blank expression on his face, seemingly lost in the pulse of the breach. His hands trembled as he stretched them toward the glowing heart. Kael's mind raced. Was he trying to open it? To control it? Eno, no! But the truth was already sinking in. They weren't here to stop the breach. They were part of it. Kael ran toward him, but the Breachborn blocked her path, swarming from all sides. There were too many. She couldn't get through. Eno turned slowly toward her, and this time the look in his eyes was empty, a void that swallowed everything she knew of him. "It's all part of it, Kael. You can't fight what's meant to." And then, in the blink of an eye, Eno collapsed. The Breachborn seemed to pull back, retreating from the scene. Kael rushed to his side, her heart in her throat. His breathing was shallow, ragged, and his eyes were wide with fear. "Eno," Kael whispered, shaking him gently. "What's happening to you?" His lips parted, and his words came out in a ragged whisper. "Kael, it's too late. We can't stop it, the planet. It knows. It's been here before. It remembers us." Eno coughed, his chest rising with great effort. "The fire. It's inside us. Always has been." Kael froze, eyes widening. Was it true? Was the breach not something they could stop, but something that was always meant to be? "Get away from him!" a voice shouted. Kael snapped to attention. Thorn was standing, barely, his body almost fully consumed by the Breachborn influence. His body was warped, his skin a mass of liquid flame that dripped to the ground. His eyes glowed, molten like the very heart of the planet. But it wasn't just the Breachborn within him. It was the planet itself. The fire inside of him was part of the core, part of the breach. "You're too late, Kael." Thorn's voice was deep, unnatural, his mouth twitching into something resembling a grin. "We all are." Kael felt a cold dread creep over her. There was no fighting it. The planet had already won. She was part of it now, too. But there was one thing Kael refused to believe. She wasn't going to let it end like this. As Thorn reached toward her, his hand glowing with burning light, Kael pushed herself to her feet and grabbed the grenade from her belt, the one that had been designed to shut down the breach. A last-ditch effort, a weapon only she knew how to use. "I'll destroy it all," Kael hissed through clenched teeth. "I'll burn this planet down if I have to." Without a second thought, Kael pulled the pin and hurled the grenade into the center of the breach. It landed with a sickening thud at the base of the pulsing heart, and the light began to flicker in a way that felt wrong, almost like the entire chamber was gasping. Boom! An explosion of fire and light erupted from the heart of the breach. It sent a shockwave of heat and pressure through the entire chamber, throwing Kael backward. But Kael didn't fall. She stood, staring as the breach collapsed in on itself, the light dimming. But the heat remained, the very soul of the planet. Twisted and corrupted, it was over. The planet was dying, and Kael had no idea what came next. End of Chapter 8. With the planet in ruins, the squad scattered, and Kael is left standing at the precipice of what could be her final battle. The end is upon them, but where does it go from here? Does Kael take down the breach once and for all, or is something more terrifying waiting in the shadows? Let me know how you want to end it. Furnace Below, Chapter 9. Ashes to ashes. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The explosive pulse of the grenade had reverberated through the core, shaking the very foundation of the planet. But now, in the wake of the destruction, there was nothing. Just the faint hum of failing machinery, the crackle of overheated systems, and the thick, suffocating air. Kael's breath came in short, sharp gasps, her chest heaving with the aftermath of the blast. The ground beneath her feet still shuddered, the remnants of the breach collapsing in on itself, turning the once violent pulsations into a faint, eerie echo. She staggered to her feet, still clutching the edge of her rifle. Her muscles were stiff, every nerve in her body aflame with adrenaline. But the fire was dying now, replaced by something heavier, something darker. They had done it. Kael turned toward Eno. His body was slumped, barely conscious, his breath shallow. The Breachborn influence still clung to him, but the glowing light. His eyes had dimmed. "Eno," she whispered, dropping to her knees beside him. "Talk to me." He blinked, his eyes flickering in and out of focus. "Kael, we did it, didn't we?" Kael nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, we did. But it cost us, Eno, it cost us everything." She stood up, looking toward Thorn, who had fallen to the ground. His body was now nothing more than a mass of smoldering ash and molten remnants, the last vestiges of the Breachborn consuming him whole. The transformation was complete, his humanity lost. Kael felt a pang in her chest. Thorn had been her brother in arms, the one person who had fought by her side in every battle. Now he was just another casualty of this twisted world. The planet. The breach had claimed him, but Kael wouldn't let it take her too. Kael. Vale's voice was barely a whisper, a ghost of the woman she had known. The scientist had been consumed by the Breachborn's influence, her body and mind altered, fractured. Kael turned to face her, her expression hardening. Vale stood at the center of the room, her form shifting between the human and inhuman, her eyes glowing in the darkness like burning embers. "We don't have to fight it, Kael. We're already part of it." Her voice was calm, too calm for someone who had been so consumed by this nightmare. "I don't know who you are anymore, Vale," Kael said, her voice steady. "I don't think I ever did." Vale smiled, an expression that should have been comforting but instead sent a cold chill up Kael's spine. "You never understood, Kael. This world, it was always a trap. The breach was never meant to be destroyed. It was a bridge, a way to evolve, to transcend the mortal coil, to become one with the flame. We were always meant to burn." Kael shook her head, her rifle still clutched in her hands. "This isn't evolution. This is corruption. This planet's nothing but ashes." Vale's eyes flared. "Everything burns, Kael. Everything must burn. Only then can we ascend." Her fingers began to twist and shift, the Breachborn influence warping her form into something inhuman, grotesque. "Don't you see? We can be more. We can be everything." A sickening screech erupted from Vale's mouth as her form contorted, her body merging with the Breachborn around her. The light grew even more intense. Her body melted, becoming one with the planet, with the breach itself. Kael took a step back, her instincts screaming at her to run. But there was nowhere to go. The room around them was collapsing. The core was no longer just a source of destruction. It was a living conduit. With Vale absorbed into the breach, the Breachborn left behind in her wake began to move toward Kael. There, liquid forms shifting like smoke, reaching for her with jagged, flaming claws. They were no longer enemies. They were a force, an inevitability. Kael turned to Eno, still kneeling, too weak to fight. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not going to make it, am I?" Eno's hand reached out weakly, his grip weak but his voice strong. "You're already more than what they wanted us to be. You've always been more." Kael took one last look around at the crumbling world. There was no hope for escape now. The breach had been the final catalyst. The end, not just for them, but for everything. But there was one final act she could control. Kael moved toward the heart of the breach, her resolve hardening. The flame had consumed her squad, and it had consumed her. But she wasn't going to let it consume the rest of the galaxy. She stepped into the heart of the pulse, the epicenter of the flame. As she did, a final cry echoed through the planet. The breach was alive, and so was she. The ground beneath Kael's feet shattered as the very essence of the breach cocooned her. She felt herself dissolving, her body melding with the heat, the fire, the very heart of the planet itself. Her vision blurred, and for a moment she wondered if she was being consumed entirely. But then she realized she had become part of it. And in that final fiery embrace, Kael felt the truth wash over her. The breach hadn't just been a tool for destruction. It had been a gateway, an evolution. The planet's last breath was an ascension. They would all transcend. Kael's final thought was simple, as the fire within her consumed everything around her. Ashes to ashes. Epilogue. The flame reborn. The stars above burned bright as ever, but on the planet below only embers remained. The breach, though collapsed, had left its mark. Those who had fought so fiercely against it had changed. The fire had consumed them. But in its wake, new life began to emerge. The flame was now part of them all, and somewhere on the other side of the galaxy, a new spark was kindling. The breach might have fallen, but it was never meant to end. It had only just begun. The end. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know in the comments what ideas you would like the next story to be about. Please leave a thumbs up, share, subscribe, comment.